What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Twins Latest. I'm Sam Calder, coming at you guys from a snowy Minnesota, but we are just one day away from actual baseball games being played, baseball eve, if you will. And so to celebrate, we've got a fun episode on tap for today. But before we get started, please be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on daily Twins updates as we approach the season. But we got lots to talk about and to get to today, so let's not waste any more time and hop right into it. There have been rumblings over the last few weeks about the Twins potentially wanting to add a starter to their rotation. They were supposedly in on Freddie Peralta before he got traded to the Mets. They were supposedly in on Framber Valdez in free agency before he went to the Tigers. So one might assume that the front office is not as satisfied with the starting rotation as we might have thought. While it's probably a little late to make a trade for a pitcher, there are still some names sitting in free agency that the Twins could go out and target. The first of which is a former Twin, Zach Littell. Littell pitched in Minnesota from 2018 to 2020. He had an ERA at 6.20 or higher in 2 of those 3 seasons, but he's really turned his career around since then. He's had an ERA between 3.63 and 4.10 each of the last 3 years, while bouncing between the Red Sox, the Rays, and the Reds. He is among the best pitchers in all of baseball at limiting walks. He's had a walk rate below 5% each of the last 3 seasons. In 2025, it was at 4.2. That was in the 98th percentile of all major league pitchers. He's also very good at getting hitters to chase outside the strike zone. He drew a swing on 31% of pitches out of the strike zone last year. That was in the 77th percentile. Outside of that, though, he really doesn't do anything at a high level. He doesn't strike guys out. He had just 130 in 186 innings last year. He gives up hard contact, and he doesn't get many swings and misses. I'd much rather the Twins fill that last rotation spot with somebody already in the organization rather than going out and spending more money on Zach Littell. Another name to monitor is Lucas Giolito. Giolito's coming off a solid season where he finished with a 3.41 ERA over 145 innings, but that is far from the full story. His expected ERA was north of 5, and his FIP was in the mid-4s. He was a below-average pitcher in every advanced metric. He didn't get whiffs. Hitters didn't chase. He allowed more hard contact than you'd like. He didn't get many strikeouts, and he walked more guys than you would also like. Just like I said with Littell, I would much rather fill that last rotation spot with someone in-house rather than signing Giolito. And then the last name I want to look at is Max Scherzer. If the Twins are going to add another starter, Scherzer is probably the guy I'd want the most. Not because of what he does on the field, because we've seen his performance decline recently, but because he can be a leader to the younger guys in this Twins pitching rotation. Scherzer is a 3-time Cy Young winner, an 8-time All-Star, and a 2-time World Series champion. The dude knows how to win, and I think that mentality would really help this Twins team. He probably wouldn't be more than a spot starter or long reliever, and who knows if he'd even accept that kind of role at this point in his career, but I think he'd be a great signing if we're going to go out and add another starter. But for the most part, I don't really want to see us add another pitcher at this point. I've talked nonstop about how much depth there is in the Twins rotation, and I think that someone will most likely emerge in spring training to grab that last spot. And I'll talk a little bit more about who that could be later on in the episode. But for now, let's pivot over to our prospect deep dive. Today's prospect isn't super highly ranked, but we will get to see him during spring training. That is outfielder Kalai Rosario. Rosario was the Twins' 5th-round pick in the 2020 MLB draft. He will turn 24 in July, which I think is a big part of why he's ranked as the Twins' number 29 prospect on MLB Pipeline and number 32 on Fangraphs. Last year, he spent the entire season at Double-A. He hit .256 with a .358 on-base percentage, 60 total extra base hits, and 32 stolen bases over 130 games. Outstanding production, absolutely. There are some concerning things in his profile, though. He had a strikeout rate of 27.5%. That's certainly not ideal at Double-A, though it is down from his 30.4% mark in 2024. He's almost too patient of a hitter. He swung at only 39% of every pitch he saw last year, and that's fine if you're a guy like Juan Soto, but if you're striking out once every 3 to 4 plate appearances, it's a little bit different. You'd like to see him be a little more aggressive. He's a fly ball hitter, which we haven't really seen from any other Twins prospect we've covered to this point. So kind of a nice change of pace there. But he's also a pull hitter, and I'm not going to argue against it. It worked for him last year. He hit 25 home runs. But when he gets to AAA or the majors, I kind of worry a little bit about pitchers just spamming sliders down and away on him with that kind of profile. And sticking with that, I think the biggest obstacle in front of Rosario isn't really anything he can control. It's just how loaded the Twins outfield core is at AAA. We've talked about Walker Jenkins and Gabby Gonzalez, but Emmanuel Rodriguez will be there. Alan Roden will be there as well. It's just going to be tough to get playing time right away, so I kind of think he'll be back at AA to start the season. I do think he'll get called up pretty early on, though, but he's just not going to play at AAA to start the year if he's there. All in all, I like Kalai Rosario, but there's a lot of obstacles in his way before he can make it to the majors. We need to see the strikeouts come down a good bit because a 27.5% strikeout rate at AA simply won't translate to the major league level. He's got to change that, but he does have the power and on-base skills to make him an intriguing prospect. There just needs to be some more room, I think, at AAA before he's, fully ready to make that jump. But shifting gears a little bit here from Kalai Rosario, given the Pablo Lopez news this week, I wanted to give you guys an updated prediction of my projected Twins opening day lineup and 26-man roster. I'll probably start doing this once a week, starting today, going forward, since games will be going on by the next time I'm doing this. But I thought it made sense to do today with the unfortunate development of Lopez this week. I think the offensive side of the 26-man roster will pretty much look the exact same. My catchers for sure are staying the same. I expect Ryan Jeffers and Victor Caratini to be the only two catchers in the majors to begin the year. Alex Jackson's another name to know there, but he'll only be up if Jeffers or Caratini gets hurt, most likely. At first base, it's still Josh Bell, Caratini, and Cody Clemens. I think Caratini will probably start roughly 50% of games at first base, with Bell and Clemens probably each getting around 25% each. Eric Wagaman could also get some innings at first base, but I think he'll more likely be, more of a third base / corner outfield depth piece than, a first baseman. For second base, we've got Luke Keeschall, who will be the everyday second baseman when he's healthy, as well as Tristan Gray, Cody Clemens, and potentially Austin Martin. Gray and Martin are both better against lefties, so they'll probably get some starts against southpaws. But Gray can play all over the infield. Clemens will get some run at first base, and Martin will likely also be a primary platoon option in the outfield. So I expect Keeschall to get the vast majority of the run at second base. At third base, I hope it's Royce Lewis for 140 games, but Wagaman can also play some third, as can Brooks Lee, as can Tristan Gray. And then at shortstop, Brooks Lee will be the starter most days, I would think, at least to start the year. But Tristan Gray can play short. Austin Martin could get some action there as well. But that's what my infield looks like. I've mentioned 10 names thus far, so that leaves us with 3 more names in the outfield. And those are, of course, your 3 projected starters in Byron Buxton, Trevor Larnach, and Matt Wallner. Austin Martin and Eric Wagaman will probably get some run in the outfield as well. Cody Clemens can play some corner outfield, but we'll see if he does with how much other talent there is in the Twins outfield. But those are my 13 hitters. They're the exact same 13 hitters from my first prediction. As for the pitching staff, this is where things could get interesting. The Twins have added a lot of relievers in recent weeks, and there's an extra spot in the rotation after the Pablo Lopez injury. As far as the starting pitchers go, I think there will be a 6-man rotation, regardless on, what that looks like. I think it's going to go like this, in order from 1 to 6. Joe Ryan, Bailey Ober, Simeon Woods-Richardson, Debbie Matthews, Taj Bradley, David Festa. I thought about getting cute and adding someone like Connor Prelip or Mick Abel. I'm not quite there yet. I do think Taj Bradley is ahead of Festa right now for a rotation spot. So if Derek Sheldon opts for a standard 5-man starting rotation, Festa would be a long reliever in my eyes. That leaves 7 spots available for the bullpen. I'm going to break it into 3 categories: the sure things, the most likely sure things, and the non-sure things. As for the sure things, we've only got 3 names in this tier: Taylor Rogers, Cole Sands, and Anthony Banda. I would be shocked if one of those guys did not make the opening day roster. Then we've got the most likely sure things. And I've only got one singular name in this category. It is Andrew Chafin. I think Chafin's track record speaks for itself. He's got a long history of being a reliable late inning reliever, and so I think he will have a spot as long as he doesn't look like garbage this spring, which I don't think he will. And then lastly, we've got three more names in the non-sure things: Justin Topa, Eric Orzi, and Cody Funderburk. I think with how many righties the Twins have in their rotation, they'll want Funderburk as another left-handed option. Orzi and Topa, I could see not making it. Orzi has struggled with command in the majors, and Topa, I don't believe is all that good. I could see Prelip or Abel starting the year in a relief role and being spot starters when needed. But I think the likeliest outcome is they start at AAA. But there you have it. That is my updated Twins opening day 26-man roster. Not a whole lot of changes from my first rendition of this. Obviously, Pablo Lopez is not included. I replaced him with Andrew Chafin. And then Anthony Banda replaced Jackson Cower, who the Twins designated for assignment. The real changes will start to come over the next couple weeks when we've got games going on, but nothing crazy as of right now. But to wrap up the episode, we've got our Twins player preview. Today's player is the guy who likely benefits the most from Pablo Lopez being hurt. It is David Festa. Up until Tuesday, I've been saying all offseason that I expect Festa to open the year in a bullpen role as a long reliever. He definitely still could. That is still very much on the table. But as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, I think he'll benefit from what I personally think will be a 6-man rotation and grab that last spot in the rotation. He's got a 4-pitch mix with a fastball, a changeup, a slider, and a sinker. None of them are spectacular from a movement perspective. In fact, they were all below league average based on Stuff Plus grades. But despite that, he was able to locate them all well enough to the point that overall, his fastball and sinker graded as above league average pitches. It was not a great season for David Festa in 2025. In the first half of the year, he wasn't horrible. He had a 5.25 ERA, but that was higher than his expected numbers would indicate. Second half of the year, he only made one start before being placed on the IL with shoulder inflammation, which actually led to him being diagnosed with thoracic outlet syndrome, the same thing that Zach Wheeler of the Phillies was diagnosed with, but he had to go undergo surgery, and Festa will not have to do that. But I digress. On the year as a whole, Festa finished with a 5.40 ERA and 53 strikeouts to 19 walks over 53 and a third innings. His expected ERA and FIP were both in the mid to high fours. Not great, but not as bad as his actual 5.40. He got a good amount of swings and misses, and he got guys to chase out of the zone at a pretty high level. So even though his Stuff Plus grades aren't great, he clearly can deceive hitters. But the reason his ERA was so high in the first place was all of the hard contact he gave up. He had a 4th percentile barrel rate allowed, a 19th percentile average exit velocity allowed, and a 21st percentile ground ball rate. Those three things do not go well together as a pitcher, and that is why he gave up 10 home runs across those 53 and a third innings last year. Overall, I think we will see a slightly better season out of Festa in 2026. I'd guess somewhere around a 4.50 ERA, somewhere between 100 and 150 innings if he stays healthy, and a good amount of strikeouts to come with that. But he's going to need to clean up the hard contact if that's going to happen. It sounds like since he had that shoulder issue last summer, he's a little bit behind at spring training. Not that far behind. He's still throwing bullpens. He's just not throwing live batting practice sessions, which to some extent, I'd rather them be cautious, especially after losing Pablo Lopez. So it may be a couple of weeks before we see Festa in any games, but we should see him at some point in early March, if I had to guess. And hopefully he can put together, a solid spring and earn that last rotation spot. But that is going to do it for today's episode. Thank you guys for tuning in to Twins Latest. And please be sure to subscribe to the channel if you are not already. If you've got any Twins-related topics you want me to touch on in a future episode, please let me know down below in the comments. But until next time, I'm Sam Calder, and I'm out.